Hue is the love song to God that we sing, which you sang before I came out here. And it's to open your heart and like opening your wings. Opening your wings simply means opening your state of consciousness. Now, most people are in the human state of consciousness. This means concerned with fears and worries about, what am I going to, am I going to be safe going home, and things like that. Am I going to be able to make rent at the end of the month, or are we going to be able to make the next mortgage payment and all this? Because that's part of the human consciousness.
Hi, beautiful souls. My name is Beatrice, and I welcome you back again to my Journey Faithful Compassion Hub. Whether you are new here because you are curious, searching, or just scrolling, you are welcome. This video is not just a reaction, it's a spiritual invitation. You don't have to belong to any religion to receive something meaningful from this, but I hope whatever you believe, this touches your heart. Today we are reflecting on a powerful talk from Harold Klemp, the spiritual leader of Ekankar, a path of spiritual freedom and personal experience. Ekankar teaches that soul, that's you and me, it's eternal and created out of God's love. But beyond the words, it's about something deeper. Learning to recognize the light and sound of God in your own life. Many people wonder, what is Ekankar? One way to understand it is through the idea of God expressing itself as the light and sound. Even in the Bible, we see this. When Moses met God on Mount Sinai, there was a burning bush, that's light. Then came a thunder and a voice, that's sound. So Ekankar is not something foreign. It simply teaches us how to be aware of God's light and sound in our daily lives, in dreams, through intuition, and even in quiet moments. So let's begin.
I'm glad so many of you were able to come to the X seminar, and we'll try to give you something that you can carry with you for more than a few weeks, perhaps your whole lifetime. Every night it's always, or every time of giving a talk, I always wonder, okay, what is there to say, what is there to do that can help you in some way spiritually? And most of the help comes inwardly, I'll have to say, because outwardly I give you the talks. But those of you who have been members of Ekankar for some time realize that there is another factor working during these talks, and it's the most important part of the talk, and this is the interconnection that you have with Divine Spirit. And it'll touch you in some way, in some unexpected way. Maybe not every time, but it'll lift you spiritually. The title for this evening is Open Your Wings. One of the members of Ekankar lives in New Zealand, and she lives in the country, cut off from the rest of the Ek members. And often she feels isolated from the others. But as a member of Ekankar, she gets what we call the Ek Discourse, which is a letter that I send out from the Ek office to the different members of Ekankar, depending upon their level of study. So she gets this, and then with the discourse, she feels as if she's part of the body of Ek. She feels this connection with all the other members in Ekankar, even though she can't go to town and meet with the other Ekists. And she remembered way back when she was 11 years old, years and years ago, when she was a little girl, a young girl, and she was in her bedroom one night, and suddenly there was this green light that shone in the corner of her room, and she looked at it, and she saw this scroll in the middle of this light, because the scroll seemed to be the light. The light seemed to come from this scroll. And she saw these characters, this alphabet written on this piece of paper, and it was just there. And she just looked, wondering what this was all about. Then as she watched, the a greenish glow, and the scroll, they just faded away. And so she knew that somehow, something, she didn't realize it was the Holy Spirit or the Ek yet, she realized something was leading her on a mystic path with very interesting experiences. And so she went along, and then years later she came in touch with Ekankar, and she's seen Rebus Artars and some of the other Ek masters. But she was reading one of these Ek discourses, and in there it said that sometimes the Shariat Ki Sugmad is seen as this scroll. Now the Shariat Ki Sugmad is the Ek Bible. It means way of the eternal. And so she was reading this and getting this understanding of what had happened to her way back when she was a child of 11, that already she had a look at one of the scriptures of this holy book, the Shariat Ki Sugmad. There are 2 volumes out here, and there are 12 volumes on the inner planes. She was able to see one, but she wondered, what is this? What is happening to me? And so then she got into Ek.
Harold Klemp shares a story about a girl who was 11 years old when she saw a glowing scroll in a green light and she had no idea what it meant. This reminded me deeply of something personal. My daughter, when she was young, she described seeing a beautiful person, and when we asked the pastor about it, he said she saw God. Years later, after discovering Ekankar, my daughter pointed to a picture of Master Fubi, one of the spiritual teachers in Ekankar, and described him as a man she saw in the dream. It made me realize that many children have spiritual experiences, but without guidance, they are misunderstood or forgotten. If this has ever happened to you or your child, maybe this is your sign.
One morning she was doing her contemplation out in the country, and the inner master came to her. That's I don't know how to modestly speak about this, but in Ekankar there are the 2 sides to the teaching, the inner and the outer teachings. And the outer teachings come from the outer person, myself. And so, I write discourses and I write articles, I give talks and do all that. On the inner side, the greater side, there's a counterpart of myself working with people in the dream state. And here I work with people as the dream master. And when people do their spiritual exercises or they go into contemplation, then in one way or another, this inner part of myself, which is a manifestation of divine spirit at a certain level, comes and speaks to them or shows them something that is important for their spiritual unfoldment at that moment. An Ekist lives in New York City, and his mother and his relatives live there too, and his family, and he's very concerned about it because of the danger, a lot of street crime, and with the drug problem as it is, there are just lots of bad things going on in the streets real close by. And so his mother is a Catholic. She doesn't know too much about Ekankar, just very, very little bit, and she isn't all that interested. But he was concerned about her and the rest of the family, and so he talked to the inner side, the Mahanta. We call this inner side of the myself, we could say the Mahanta, the living Ek master, but the inner master or the dream master is also another name. And he was saying, if it's okay, and if I'm not interfering in my mother's personal space or anything like this, is there some way there can be some protection for her? What he didn't know is at about the same time, his mother was at home, and she's also very afraid of the crime. So she asked God, she says, God, please send me a guardian angel. So a short time after that, she was in her living room, and she saw a blue light. And of course, those of you who are in Ekankar know that the blue light is one of the ways that the inner master shows up and marks the presence of safety, protection, or wisdom, or something along this line. And that night his mother went to sleep, and you remember she knows very, very little about Ekankar. And she goes to sleep, has a dream, and then she has this feeling where she says, I have to sing Hugh. And of course, Hugh is the love song to God that we sing, which you sang before I came out here. And it's to open your heart and like opening your wings. Opening your wings simply means opening your state of consciousness. And so then this opened up and she saw a bright light around her, the same kind of bright light that she had seen in her living room. And then, of course, her son told her about the connection between the inner master, Wazi, that's another name. We got so many names going on the other side. Sometimes lose track. But they are names for different purposes in different places. You know, sometimes this inner master, the dream master, is known as Wazi. It's the full name, sometimes for short, Z. And every religion has its own view about how soul exists and why, and when did soul begin, and all this, and what is the final destination of soul.
One part of the talk that moved me deeply, a young man from New York asked for spiritual protection for his mother who knew little about Ekankar. At around the same time, his mother, without knowing, saw a blue light in her home, and then she dreamt that she should sing Yu. Yu is a sacred name for God, used for thousands of years. Some call it a forgotten name. In Ekankar, Yu is sung as a love song to God, not tied to any religion. You can sing Yu whether you are Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or from any other path. It opens the heart and invites divine spirit in our lives. This mother didn't know Yu, but her soul did. That's what is beautiful about soul. When it's ready, it recognizes truth.
I want to go back for a minute to the woman in New Zealand. Same thing, open your wings, open your wings. She had gone into contemplation, and the inner master came to her and said, open your wings, and you will know who you are. And this is the whole point about the path of Ak and these teachings. Open your wings means simply open your state of consciousness, and then you will know who and what you are. Okay? Now, most people are in the human state of consciousness. This means concerned with fears and worries about, what am I going to, am I going to be safe going home, and things like that. Am I going to be able to make rent at the end of the month, or are we going to be able to make the next mortgage payment and all this? Because that's part of the human consciousness, the thing, this whole set of circumstances that drives us in our daily life. The reason we get a job or whatever we do, to get some kind of money to make things go around and keep moving, so that we can survive in a place of our own choosing, and that we can care for those who depend on us. And so the inner master said to her, open your wings, and you will know who you are. So these talks, inwardly and outwardly, are to help you open your wings, which means open your state of consciousness so that you can go beyond the human state, to go beyond the human state into one of the higher states of spiritual consciousness. I doubt whether most people who go to church understand what we're talking about. I'm giving experiences, but I do have to say, even though ours is a path of experience, in other words, don't believe something because I've told it to you or some other member of Ek has told you something. Prove it for yourself. If it works, take a step further. And if it doesn't work, go off and do whatever you please or whatever you started out to do in the first place. But beyond experience is something much more important. And this is just simply learning how to give and receive God's love. And that's not experience, that's a condition. That's being able to open your heart or open your wings to accept the gifts of life. And the gifts are all around you all the time. Sometimes, and most often, they come to us as acts of kindness by people near us. But if we are in the human consciousness, we sometimes are gruff. Perhaps one of our children comes up to us and speaks very nicely to us, but we're having a hard day, so we grump at them because that's the human nature. And the child, of course, is hurt, backs off, and says, I'm going to wait until, Dad or Mom feels better before I go back into that tiger trap again, But this is how it is. The gifts of God come to us most often through other people. And if we knew this, and also that the gift of love comes through us to other people, if we let it, but only if we open our heart, and it must be with discrimination. There's a saying that you love those who are close to you with your whole heart, but you love those who are outside of your close circle with a detached love or with charity. In other words, you cannot love everyone with the same warmth, because loving means acting and showing your love. So a human body can give only so much love, and usually we reserve the warm love for those who are close to us. And they, of course, do the same for us. If we're in their family and so on, or their loved one, well, love does everything for those whom it loves. I mean, it isn't like in a relationship, someone says, okay, in a relationship, give 50%, the man gives 50%, the woman gives 50%, or whatever, It doesn't work like that. You have to give 100% of yourself and expect no praise or no reward for it. So you just love. And why do you love? Because you love.
Harold Klemp says, open your wings and you know who you are. That's not just poetic. It means opening your state of consciousness, moving beyond fear, survival, and limitations. Many of us operate from a place of stress, fear, and worry. Will I make rent? Will I be safe? Will I be loved? But opening your wings means you are realizing you are more than these concerns. It's not about escaping life. It's about living from a deeper place within it. You don't need a dramatic event to open your wings. Sometimes it begins small. Trust your heart, follow a gentle nudge, or say yes to an experience that calls to your soul. One of the deepest insights from this talk is about love. Many of us seek love from others, from family, from partners, from friends. But Harold Klemp reminds us, you must learn to love yourself first. This isn't ego, it's knowing that you are worth of love even no one else says it. Because if you don't love yourself, you'll keep asking others to fill the space that only divine love can fill. Until you give love to yourself, you will struggle to truly give it to others. Real love is not about 50-50. It's about giving 100%, expecting nothing, because you are love itself.
Sometimes Divine Spirit will give you an insight into something that's happening in your daily life. And one of the most interesting ways is through an experience in a past life. Now, we in Ekankar just take reincarnation for granted for the most part. I would say many of the people, probably 90% of those who come to Ekankar, have already worked through the reincarnation problem with themselves. Because we have members from all religious faiths, Christianity and all the others, Hinduism and so forth, the Islam religion even, and so on. And every religion has its own view about how soul exists and why, and when did soul begin, and all this, and what is the final destination of soul. Every group has its own beliefs. But by the time people come to Ekankar, they've usually been introduced. Maybe years ago it used to be the teachings of Edgar Cayce, still around. Reincarnation, very popular, on TV nowadays with all the video and the computer graphics. They can do some marvelous reenactments, of what they think, flying saucers and reincarnation and all these things should look like, and played up with good lights and auras and stuff around people. Very nice. But basically, it's nothing at all as glorious as the spiritual experience itself. For instance, if you go on the inner planes, and people have described this, the blue light that is often seen, which is the counterpart of the inner master, the Mahanta, the living Ek master. People who work in the nuclear field and are Ekas, they've seen the core of a nuclear reactor, and they said, and one man in particular said, the light is such a beautiful blue, that it strongly affects anyone who sees it. And because the atom, and as its color, as it's showing out as the reaction's going on, this is, of the atom, the building block of the physical universe. So it's not all that unusual that people would see blue, both in a nuclear reactor and also on the inner planes, because the atom goes even further than the physical plane. There's substance and structure on all levels up to the soul plane. And at that point beyond, there is no more of the material matter, or a mixture of matter and spirit, which makes up the the buildings and the people, and, the bodies and all this of the inhabitants who live there. But the blue light, very, very special. Sometimes the past lives, as I have mentioned, open up or explain something that's happening in everyday life that simply doesn't make any sense. For instance, a group of students from Ghana went outside their country for a year course in French. And so they went to get some more fluency in French. And as they went to this other country, one of the girls, a black student, of course, she was an Ekist. She happened to meet a white German male. And just like that, they were close friends. Well, of course, all her friends started to talk, got a romance going here, what's going on. And why with a white man? Because there's this thing between races, and a lot still today. When someone of a different color comes into the established race of a community, then it's sometimes a problem. People, raise their eyebrows, and then friends become upset and all this. It happens all the time. So her friends were beginning to talk about her and saying some untrue things about their friendship, about her friendship with this white German, and they were untrue. And yet she didn't want to give up her friends, but she didn't want to give up her white friend either. And so she's trying to figure out how to balance all this out. And so one day while she was lying down, she decided to do a spiritual exercise. And it's very simple. Usually you just shut your eyes and you say, whoever as a spiritual guide you feel very comfortable with, Jesus or whoever. But in Ekankar, the people look to the Mahanta and they say, please, Wazi or Harold or whatever, please give me an insight into what's happening. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to lose my friends on this side. I don't want to lose my friend on that side. This basically is the problem that she had and was trying to resolve. And the next thing she knew, she found herself in another lifetime standing on a beach, and there was a baby in her arms. And just offshore was one of the early slaving ships, one of the slavers, and the white slavers were standing on the beach. And they had whips and were standing there, and they had a whole line of black slaves and tied together with chains. I think a point of interest here is that, so often one race gets upset at another race and say, you did these cruel things to us and so on and so forth. But many of the people who were sold into slavery in Africa were actually victims or prisoners of war of their own, of some other black tribe. And so the black tribe had a choice, either kill them or sell them, for some kind of money so that they could enrich themselves. And I don't know if the prisoners were lucky or not, but sometimes, instead of being killed outright, their captors, their black captors, sold them into slavery. They would bring them from the interior of the continent where the whites did not know, they didn't know the interior at all, but this is where the fighting went on, and then the blacks would bring out the captives and then sell them to the slavers, and the slavers would send them on ships off to England or America or wherever, off to South America, and this is how the whole thing went. But history sometimes gets a little cloudy. People revise it as time goes on, and then we like to think basically person of another race did this all to us, when actually the people, our own people, did it to us. That sort of thing. This happens a lot. And this was a case where the white slavers were loading blacks onto the ships, and she was standing there crying with a child in her arms because her husband was one of the slaves. So she went to the slave master, to the slave masters, and begged him. She says, "Please let my husband go. We have a child." And of course they laughed at her and ignored her. And then pretty soon it was time for the slaves to get aboard the ship. And as they're going on, he calls to her. He said, "If we don't get to meet again in this lifetime, surely we will meet in another." And so then she realized that it wasn't just mere chance that she happened to run into this white German student and have such a strong attraction to him. And in fact, she noticed that whenever she saw her German friend, he would act just like an African. He walked and he talked and he did other things just like an African. She used to look at him and wonder, where did you pick that up? Look at him like this. Well, the fact was, they had been together a long time in the past, and as this inner experience was coming to an end, the Mahanta connected the name and said, "Your friend in this lifetime was your husband in that lifetime." And then all of a sudden she understood why there was such a strong rapport between them. And after this, she was able to handle her friends a lot better too. They tried to intimidate her and say, you shouldn't be seen with that white man. What will people think? This is the social consciousness speaking. It's one element of the human consciousness that tries to keep everybody's head at the same level. You don't want someone with a tall head standing out in a crowd. The social consciousness tries to make everybody's head the same level. And but after this, she was able to deal with her friends and be very, very firm, because she knew what she was doing, and she knew why. She knew it was a very dear, loved person from another lifetime, and this is just how it was. And so she was able to go forward with her life and straighten everything out, keep her friends on both sides, and resolve this problem. And she was able to resolve this problem by seeing the past life. It explains so much why this close affinity, why he acted like an African. And these are just some of the things that we find are commonplace occurrences in Eckankar. I shouldn't say commonplace exactly, because as I come here, I try to give you the very best examples possible. Sometimes you won't have a past life experience at all. I know in my early years in Ek, I had lots of them. Some of them were pleasant. There were some unpleasant ones where you find that you are, leaving a certain existence under certain conditions, and You don't like the experience at all, but you get an understanding about yourself. You learn about yourself as soul. Soul is immortal, has no beginning, nor has it an ending. Now, I think in this regard, the definition of Ekankar of soul as an immortal being is a true one, because soul is created before and beyond time and space. And the Christian religion, as far as I could always figure out as I was there, the belief there is that soul is born or created at conception. And this causes a lot of problems. For one thing, it's born within the realm of time and space, and therefore you can't really, in that sense, say it's without a beginning, because it has a beginning in time and space if you're going to look at it that way. But God created soul before the worlds began. And then soul merely comes here as part of its experience from the other worlds beyond time and space. And then it comes here and has many, many lifetimes learning one thing or another. Basically, the greatest thing that soul learns, forget about all the experiences forget about all the experiences. It's simply the experiences teach us how to love God. And how do we learn this? First of all, through loving maybe ourselves first, or maybe others first. I don't know, with some people, the first step in loving God comes in loving other people. And until you love yourself, you cannot love other people. I mean, you may get along very well with other people and all this, and I see these people often as people who are strongly driven by the mind. They get along well with everybody else and all this, but love has not yet touched their heart. Because when love touches your heart, you become quite a different person. So I'd like to close this evening with the blessing of the Ek Masters. May the blessings be. Thank you very much.
Now, let's turn to speak to something that many find it difficult: reincarnation. Harold explains how past lives often explain current relationships and challenges. A girl in the talk felt drawn to a white man despite racial pressure. She later saw in a spiritual experience that he had been a husband in a past life. Now, you might ask, is reincarnation in the Bible? Look at Matthew 17:10-13, when the disciples asked Jesus, why did the teachers say Elijah must come first? And he replied, Elijah has already come, but they didn't recognize him. And the disciples understood that he's talking about John the Baptist. This is one of the clearest signs in the Bible of a soul returning in another body, not as punishment, but to complete spiritual lessons. In Ekankar, reincarnation is not about karma alone, it's about love. Souls comes to earth again and again to learn how to love God more deeply. Have you ever met someone and felt a deep instant connection as if you have known them forever? In Ekankar, this is often so remembering our companions. Those we love or struggle with are often part of our journeys through many lifetimes. Knowing this brings healing and helps move beyond judgment and into understanding. Wherever you are in life, wherever your faith or path, I hope this message touched something in your heart. You don't have to understand it all, but if something here felt familiar, if something in your soul stirred, I invite you to explore gentle, sing you, and ask for insight. And please share this video with someone you never know. Someone may need it more than you know. And as Harold Klemp closes his talk, I'll say this too: may the blessings be. I love you all.